You're not going to ever pet a baby tiger if you happen to see it, like in Africa on the side of the road. You're not going to just wander up to a mama elephant. If you wouldn't touch them in the wild, if you wouldn't pick them up in the wild, then it's not okay in any other situation. The clock has been ticking for a while, and I really wish that they would pick up the speed to do things. It's inconvenient. But I mean, so is climate change. Back to money talks. And so people have to be very conscious of that. Like, don't spend your dollars with that. Don't encourage that behavior. I don't know why that could ever be popular. Like, why do you want to drink poop coffee? First, I was really looking for a job within the vegan or environmental space, but I couldn't find one. I did what every college-educated person does when they can't find a job, and I started a vegan travel blog. And it's like, come on, if you're trying to be a 4 or 5 star place, like, this is unacceptable.
Welcome back, legends. I'm Callum, your vegan nutritionist, and welcome back to another epic episode of the Plant Fuel Podcast. Today, we're about to embark on a journey around the globe with the incredible Rebecca from Veggies Abroad. If you're anything like me, travel is a huge passion, and Rebecca is a kindred spirit. She's a vegan travel advisor and industry expert who holds multiple vegan tours across the world each year. In this episode, we dive deep into the ins and outs of vegan travel, from navigating language barriers to discovering the truth about the so-called non-vegan friendly countries. Rebecca shares her wealth of experience and tips. We'll explore cruelty-free attractions. Yeah, I'm looking at you, tiger stroking. And even touch on the weird world of poop coffee. Yes, you heard that right. Rebecca also gives us the lowdown on how to travel more ethically and sustainably. We chat about the hospitality industry's evolving attitude towards veganism and so much more. If you're planning your next trip or just dreaming of far-off places, this episode is packed with golden nuggets you won't want to miss. Before we kick off, I want to give a massive shout out to all our listeners for your ongoing support. It means the world to me. If you're loving these episodes, please consider leaving a review, following, or giving us a rating on your preferred platform. It helps us reach more people and spread the word about veganism and plant-based eating. Plus, I promise to keep bringing you the guests and topics you want to hear. So, grab your favorite plant-based snack, sit back, and let's get ready to explore the world with Rebecca from Veggies Abroad. This is the Plant Fuel Podcast. Let's get started. You just got back from South Africa as well, didn't you?
Yeah. When did I get back? It's 2 weeks ago, I think. About 2 weeks ago. My time is weird for me now. It just it's up, down, and I get a sense of where I am, time and space, and then it changes again, and I'm just okay, fine. I hope to have at one point in my life a better sense of time and space. It's just not at this moment.
I think as well, traveling around as well, time difference really gets you, no matter where you are.
Yes.
It's just, I understand how time difference works, but I also don't understand why there needs to be so many.
I agree. It's just painful. And I swear to God, jet lag has gotten worse as I've gotten older. I always felt like I could kind of muscle through just about anything. But coming back from South Africa, it took me a week to get back to more of a normal state. And it's not because the time difference was so crazy, but it was just my return flight to get back to the US I was awake for almost 2 days. So that was just miserable. It was so nice when I finally got to the point where I wasn't falling asleep at 6 o'clock and then 7 o'clock. And then I would start to make it to 9 o'clock. And I'm okay, we're making progress here.
I feel exactly the same because me traveling around, I haven't really experienced jet lag too much in my life. Maybe a tiny bit of here and there. Mm-hmm. But my flight back from London back to Australia last week, I have never been knocked out so much in my life. I've never felt anything like that. I felt sick. I felt dizzy. I just had no idea.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
But also I was in the air for what I think 46 hours.
Forever. Yes.
And then stopping off in Taiwan, which is a totally different time difference. Getting used to that for quite a few hours, and then coming back over here, and then it's just extremes. And I've never experienced that, and I've been traveling for the last 3 years and never experienced anything like that. And as you say, as you get older, it just it gets worse on the body.
Yes, it does. It does. A friend of mine asked me the other day, she was like, well, do you do that like change your sleep schedule thing before you go? And I laughed and I was like, who has time for that? Like, no, I don't have time to change my sleep schedule now and then like probably still have to adjust when I get there. And no, I'm just going to muscle through it as best as possible and whine about it until I'm done.
That's the thing. I try to do it on the plane
Uh-huh.
a lot of the time, but however, that also means falling asleep on a plane to
Yeah, and
try and
that's
change. And
so
falling asleep is so
hard.
hard. Like
Yes.
sometimes I can do it. Sometimes I can fully just, I'm off, I'm out.
Yeah.
And then there's other days where I'm not sleeping. On the way back from, back to Australia, I think I slept for like 4 hours.
Oh,
Um, and the rest was literally, you know, watching films. And every time you do fall asleep, someone comes around with food. I'm like,
or
please stop
something. Yeah.
feeding me.
Yeah. A funny story with that. I had a flight from here, Detroit, to South Korea last year. And so it's a direct flight, which is really nice, but it's still, I think, 14 hours total. 14, yeah, about 14 hours. And so, I was unfortunately, unfortunately for this moment, but previous to this, I did enjoy sitting in the window seat. And so I was like 7 hours through the flight, and it was like a kind of a daytime flight for me, even though I ended up there at night. And so about 7 hours in, I'd watched a bunch of movies, I'd had my snacks. I was like, okay. And so I was feeling like, okay, we're further along than this. And I looked at the clock, and it was like, oh no, you still had like 7 or 8 hours to go. And I was like, oh my God, I am stuck on this plane. I cannot get off this plane. And the two people next to me are dead to the world. Like the one guy was practically snoring. And I was like, oh my gosh, so what am I going to do? I can't get up. Now my butt is sore. Oh, my knees are sore. Everything is sore. And I am trapped in this box in the air. So I started texting my husband and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. He's like, wake them up. What is wrong with you? And I was like, I know, but they're sleeping and they're sleeping so well. And he's like, you're freaking out on an airplane, which isn't normal. You just need to wake them up. So I did. And then I wandered the back of the plane for a while. And the flight attendant was like, do you need anything? Are you okay? And I was like, no, I just don't make me go back to my seat. Please don't make me go back there. I can't sit anymore. And she laughed. She's like, okay, you can stand here for as long as you want.
That's the thing. I think, like, especially when you are next to people that are sleeping as well. Like, I do feel bad about trying to wake them up. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I know how hard it is to fall asleep on it.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm impressed that you've managed to fall asleep in such an uncomfortable position.
Yes.
And I'm like,
crazy.
I do need to go to the toilet. However, I don't want to wake you up because you look so peaceful.
I know. And now I like try and only choose aisle seats for really long plane rides so that I can like get up and down. But oh God, if it's not available, it's cringeworthy. But now I just like I wake people up. I'm gonna wake you up as many times as I need to get up, and I just can't feel bad about it.
Yeah, no, it's very much. I think being on a plane, especially when you're on, one for, sometimes, 17, 18 hours, you have no choice. Like, you have to just kind of be selfish to yourself.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just going to have the very uncomfortable ride yourself.
Yeah, and that's just so, I don't know about you, but I normally don't sit for that long of periods of time in my normal waking life. That is a very long time to sit and to sit still.
Yeah, like for someone like myself, I'm very active and like I sit down very much. I'd say rarely. Like apart from going to sleep and maybe the odd hour or two, like working on the laptop, I'm
Yeah.
very much on the go constantly. So like when I have to sit down for like sometimes like near enough 2 days, I'm just like, this is just not
It's
my
torture.
casual life.
Yes, agreed.
You know what? I'm also really glad you're here today because I think like we're definitely combining two of my favorite things here, which is obviously travel, which I know a lot of my listeners know that I've been doing this now or traveling around for about 3 years consistently, and also veganism as well. And yourself being a well-traveled human who has created a career out of it as well with Veggies Abroad. However, before we dive into that, or dive headfirst into that, who is Rebecca Gade-Sawicki?
Gade-Sawicki.
Yeah, I was wondering how to pronounce that.
You did it with a good amount of confidence too. I really appreciate that. You're like, I'm convicted. I know that this is the way.
That's the thing with some names. With some names, I'm
It
just like,
is.
I have to go in there with full confidence. I'm like, how do I pronounce this?
It is. But I won't hold it against you. But to answer your question, so, oh gosh, who the heck am I? I run Veggies Abroad, as you mentioned, which is a vegan travel agency. I am based in the US, specifically the Detroit area and the lovely state of Michigan. So let's see, I started the company because I wanted to align my career with my ethics. My previous career was in fundraising, which generally sounds really, really nice. But my focus was on corporate fundraising. So I worked with a lot of businesses and companies. And so I had to sometimes make people like me or vice versa that I didn't agree with. And so that kind of became a bit of a battle internally with myself, especially once the pandemic hit. So when the pandemic hit, I took time to kind of reevaluate my career. At first, I was really looking for a job within the vegan or environmental space, but I couldn't find one. So I did what every college educated person does when they can't find a job, and I started a vegan travel blog. And to be very honest, the blog was not meant to become a business. It wasn't meant to grow into a travel agency. It was just meant to be a stepping stone. I had hoped that it would help me network with like-minded people. Of course, I was going to force me to learn a bunch of new skills and just a way I would go. And at that time I was doing some freelance and some consulting work, and anybody who's done any of that knows that that can be really challenging to keep consistent. And then the travel part of things continued to grow, specifically with the blog, and I started getting requests about, would you do trips, would you do X, and I always would say no. And then I started by the end of 2022 kind of really thinking about, well, maybe this is the way in which I need to go. But I was very reluctant to actually join the travel space because the travel industry is full of all kinds of crap as well. And I was really worried that I was just going to end up right back where I was previously and having to handhold and sell things that I didn't agree with. And then I met someone who told me, you know what, the good thing about the travel industry is that you can do what you want. You run your own business. So you decide who you want to work with and who you don't. So if you want to support women's camps in Africa, go for it. If you don't want to support this guy, you don't have to. The buck stops with you. And so I was like, oh, maybe I can really make something of this. So let's see, we're now 2024. The beginning of 2023, I launched Veggies Abroad as an actual travel agency. And so I work with people one-on-one as a travel advisor. I run small group vegan tours. I run a podcast, and the blog still lives. It is still very much a part of the business, and it's kind of where it all started, crazily enough.
It's incredible how things like a blog can just lead to such so many bigger things.
Yeah.
I know a few people in the space that have started off with a blog and then they've got a whole other business coming out of this now. I'm just myself, I always I at one point was writing blogs, but I didn't know where to go with that.
Yeah.
So I just pivoted, whereas some people's blogging completely changes their life. Which is absolutely incredible. But I do know what you mean as well with obviously the travel space is huge. However,
yes, so massive.
the vegan and obviously veganism is still very a niche area.
Yeah.
So there's not I'm guessing a few years ago there wasn't a huge amount of movement in that area. However, you're one of the kind of forefronters of obviously, vegan travel.
Well, that's really nice to say. I'd like to think that there are a handful of us out there, but the focus on the vegan side of things is small. And in addition to the vegan side of things, I also focus on sustainability and responsible travel. And so I think that definitely makes me even more niche, but then it makes me even more specialized, even within the vegan space as well. And it continues to grow, and I hope people continue to be very mindful of how they're traveling and don't forget about, holding those same ethics and values when they leave their homes.
I totally I totally understand where you're coming from because myself, like I've been traveling now. Yeah, I think it's 4 years, but obviously I'm always looking for the most vegan, like not vegan places, but vegan places to eat while I'm there, but
Yeah,
also the most sustainable options because I know I'm obviously taking a lot of flights as well,
sure,
which is very inconvenient. No, I mean it's convenient to get there, but it's
sure.
inconvenient to obviously um climate and things like that, and just trying to find ways to get around that, whether that be like
Yeah.
offsetting my carbon footprint through some kind of apps, which is a great way to do it. Because there's so many different places that I want to see, but obviously you know
Yeah, right.
there's no way to get there unless you are
As you
flying.
fly, yeah. And unfortunately, like there's been a lot of progress. Well, okay, a lot seems strong, but there has been progress within the travel space with like hotels being more sustainable and, moving forward with more plans. And so that's really great. And there are tour operators that are making more conscious effort, but the airline industry definitely has a ways to go and not they're very far away from having, much more sustainable fuel processes. I did see an article recently of a company that is working on an electric jet that's range is like 500 miles or something, which is interesting, but it's a far way away from that being like a consumer facing option. And so these guys, like they know that the time that the clock has been ticking for a while, and I really wish that they would pick up the speed. And I mean, obviously, I think governments around the world have to put more pressure on them to enact change, because it's not like they don't have the money and the science behind it to do things. It's inconvenient, but I mean, so is climate change.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. The electric jet thing, I have seen that as well, and I'm not too sure how that's going to work. Like, obviously, I don't know the science behind it,
Right.
but I feel like there's only a certain amount of mileage that thing can obviously do without obviously coming down as well.
Yeah, the one that I saw recently was a short range. I think it was only about 500 miles. So yeah, that's not gonna get you too far.
Yeah, I think that could. I'm not too sure how big 500 miles is in this grand scheme of things, but I assume that could probably get you over quite a few states.
Might get you. I'm gonna do the kilometers, the exact. I'm thinking it might get you over part of a state. It's 804 kilometers. So,
Oh, so yeah, you're not even attempting Texas.
oh my gosh, no, no, like Rhode Island, maybe. I'm not even sure the size of Rhode Island, but it's one of the small guys.
Yeah, I was about to say like that's not even going to get
Texas.
you like out of like Sydney. Um,
No.
but
It's
I
like a regional jet. So maybe like for me, it'd be like maybe going to Detroit to Grand Rapids. So like kind of from one side of the state to the other, even though like now that I say that out loud, no, that's got to be less than 500 miles.
Yeah, I
Um,
think I think I could if I was going to put it in perspective. I think that's probably London to Scotland, maybe.
yes.
You'll probably make that.
Yeah. 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 So we're not making a significant dent, but I mean, like kudos to this guy. Like keep it going, keep the science going behind it, keep extending your range. You'll get somewhere.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think as technology evolves as well, it's gonna get better, but it's still years down the line as well. Like we're seeing slow movements in the just electric vehicles at the moment, and that's
Yeah.
still slow in comparison to fossil fuel cars, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's taken if you consider like when the first electric car rolled off, and I mean, I'm from the Motor City, that was a big deal. And that, God, I can't even think like how many years ago that was. But it's been a while, and it's definitely becoming more and more popular here. But in comparison to gas cars, pales in comparison.
So how do you even go to thinking where to begin, because obviously you're creating these like incredible trips for people, but obviously you're looking at like sustainability, you're looking at like hotels, you're looking at like
Yeah.
countries as well, and where to go. Where does that even start? Because like, what do you have to consider? Because you can't just like when you're creating a tour, you can't just make it up as you go along. Like you
No,
can't just
that would be
you
the
can't
world's worst.
yeah, you can't just wing it with a bunch of people and just hope for the best. Especially
Yeah.
if you're taking what 15 to 20 people with you. Sometimes it's
The
just you
max group
can't wing it.
size is 16. So no, the size will never be larger than that. And that's done purposely because it's a better experience for the travelers, and it is a better experience for the communities in which they're visiting. Anybody who has been somewhere and a busload of people just like, comes and descends on a restaurant or an activity, you're like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. It's terrible. It's not an ideal way to travel. And we really got to kind of move away from kind of that corralling of humans mentality and make things smaller. So like, there's a variety of ways that kind of I go about it. One of the largest ones is that I partner with a company called Intrepid Travel, and they're actually from Australia. And so they focus on responsible and sustainable travel. They're a tour operator. So they give me a really great backbone to be able to make sure that we are hiring guides that are local from the destination. So it's not some Yahoo from New Jersey trying to come over to tell you about the Tuscan vineyards or whatever. So you have someone from the destination. So you're also then keeping that money in the destination. And keeping it local, which is really important. We also then, I go through different levels of hotel research. Hotels are a thorn in my side, and I'm not sorry to admit it, because it's really difficult when you're managing like a group, because you have to think about, like, first and foremost, like I look for like ones that have like eco-friendly priorities or the sustainability initiatives, that they're, doing something in the community. Hopefully that they're vegan friendly, or they're able to do something for our group. And so like, that's kind of like the first checkbox. But then from there, things get super dicey, because then I need to make sure that they've got rooms that can accommodate like 2 beds in case people don't want to share a bed. Do they have enough rooms in the hotel? Is it even available in the dates that I want? And so it's just like there's kind of a sad trail that I lead down with that. And I mean, there's plenty of places that I've wanted to work with, but like the bedding part is an issue, or availability is an issue, or they're just not enough dang rooms. So that like definitely makes it challenging. But I've been able to. So we did a cool tour to Thailand last year, and actually that's coming back for 2025. And we stayed in Chiang Mai at a vegan hotel. And so that was really cool. So when those exist, like I try and work them in, when possible, and, when it can work within the group. So, that's definitely a priority. And then when we're dining out and working at group meals, I do a lot of research with restaurants in the area and try and, avoid chains, stick with anything that's locally owned. I also try and like do a little research to see if we can find out a little bit about the people who own it. Why was it started? We had a couple really cool stories in Thailand. There was one place that we visited in Chiang Mai also. It was also, in addition to being a restaurant, it was also like a social impact business. And so they ran like a thrift shop, and they also ran a thrift shop, and like there was something else that was a part of it. And all of the funds that came from the thrift shop then went back to their nonprofit. And the nonprofit helps with providing people with housing, with education, with like basic human needs. And so that, was really cool. And actually the woman who runs that is from Missouri originally, which for people listening is like the middle of the United States. Kind of a surprising place for someone to then venture to Thailand to start a social impact business. And then another one that we visited, the family was not vegan, but one of their family members got cancer, and the doctor told them, I think adopting a plant-based diet is going to be your best course of action with medicine and treatment to beat this. And so the woman did beat this. And afterwards, like the rest of the family was like, oh my gosh, we have to change our lives. And coming out of changing their lives, they also decided to open up a restaurant because of that inspiration. So it was really neat to be able to share these things with the group. So then they have a deeper connection to the place and a deeper appreciation. And I think that's a really important part of travel, is that we really learn and appreciate where we're going. And we understand like different things, nuances that are going on there. We hear from people who live there. So it's not a Disneyland experience, because that's not travel. That's not really learning and growing and being inspired by, where you go and where you venture.
Yeah, I think like you going out and obviously integrating yourself with like the society and the culture there and meeting the experiences is the experience that you want when you go traveling.
Yeah.
When you go to like a 5-star resort with like an all inclusive, you're not leaving that place.
No,
You're not
you're not
learning anything
experiencing
about
that
that country.
place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Right.
there's so much to the country more than that, I don't know, mile or square foot that like you're
Yeah.
in. Like
Right.
it's that's very much it. But you mentioning Chiang Mai actually, I was there in 2000 and it must have been 2016 maybe.
Okay.
I found Chiang Mai actually very vegan friendly.
It is.
In
Yeah.
comparison to the rest of Thailand. In Thailand, I would say it's very easy to get around
Yeah.
as a vegan. However, Chiang Mai being the home of elephant sanctuaries as well at the same time, and elephant sanctuaries are a weird one. Like there's some that are great and like that
Mm-hmm.
they're amazing, and I had to put in a lot of effort to
Yes.
try and find the one I that's the most like vegan friendly, treats the animals well. You're not riding on the back of an elephant,
Right.
things like that.
Right.
And luckily, I managed to find one. Which was that these elephants had been taken from circuses and war zones that were missing
Oh.
limbs, and they had a donation thing where they were fitting prosthetics
Oh my
to
gosh.
these
Wow. That's
elephants.
amazing.
So ones that are missing like a leg, they had a prosthetic leg, and they're basically disabled elephants that they were looking after, and you couldn't ride. You could obviously get in and wash them, only if they allowed you to as
Mhm.
well. So you had to make like obviously with these be with these creatures long enough for them to kind of be like, we're okay with you doing this
Yeah.
with us, which I thought was incredible. Whereas some people were just going to any old sanctuary
Yeah.
and just riding an elephant, getting in like I'm getting the whole the playful thing with the elephants. Great if they're allowing it,
Yeah.
but yeah, the whole riding and other issues like elephants still being whipped over there and stuff like that is
Yeah.
insanity to me.
And there's a lot of like what I would consider like eco and ethical washing with so many animal activities, which is really hard. I worked with the World Animal Protection Organization to kind of develop an animal welfare policy for all of our activities. And I would say I'm probably pretty strict with it, just because I don't want, my clients' dollars going to support something, and I don't want to by proxy being to support that and continue it, because when you give them, whatever the amount is, like you're telling them, I want more of this. And so we have to be very careful about where we spend our dollars. And so I've too gone through very many rabbit holes, so to speak, of trying to figure out what's best. And now I've kind of like found friends that focus on some of this so that we can like talk about different activities. I was actually, before this call, working on an itinerary to Australia for a client, and they really wanted to go to a sanctuary, and where they were kind of visiting, there was a whole lot of koala holding. And I was like, what is going on with this? Leave the koalas alone. And then the one was like, well, we've stopped koala holding, but we still do like these picture photo shoots. And I was like, for the love of God, like just stop. And so I had to tell them, I was like, just take it all out. Like, we're going to have to find another way. And the compromise was, there is like a park not too far from where they're going to be, a national park, and there are quite a few koalas that just naturally live there. And I was like, great, you guys can go hiking, you can find the koalas, you can take all the pictures of them that you want, and you will leave them the hell alone. And I was with a group recently, and they showed a really great video before we started. And I feel like this is like such a great point for people, that if you wouldn't touch them in the wild, if you wouldn't pick them up in the wild, then it's not okay in any other situation. So like, you're not going to ever pet a baby tiger if you happen to see it like in Africa on the side of the road. You're not going to just wander up to a mama elephant. Then you don't do it in an activity.
This is my exact argument that I have with people because they're like, "Oh, I stroked a tiger." I was like, "In what world
No,
would you stroke a tiger? In what world would you stroke a tiger in real life?
right?
Like, you wouldn't even go near a tiger in real life. Like, you'll be dead within seconds.
Yes,
Like, and
exactly.
these things as well. You're in a cage with them. They're on a
Yeah,
giant chain, so they know full well that this thing is tied up. Half of them are missing teeth, and they're
yeah,
drugged up to their nuts in like
yes,
to make them docile enough for you to touch them. Like, there is no way on this planet that you are touching a tiger,
yeah,
like, outright in the wild.
right. Yeah,
And I think it's just finding those cruelty-free attractions as well. There's
yeah.
like I know a lot of states have banned koala holding now.
Oh, good.
Not all of them. And I think it still goes on. I think
Yeah.
things still go on. Like, it's money making for some people.
Yeah, it goes back to
Um,
money talks. And so people have to be very conscious of that. Like, don't spend your dollars with that. Don't encourage that behavior.
Yeah, so when my sister came and visited a few months ago, and she obviously wanted to see a koala, but I'm not paying for any zoo. I'm not going to any sanctuary.
Yeah.
She's also vegan as well, so she feels the same. She has the same ethics as well. However, we went to a place called Magnetic Island as well, and you just hike around and just see koalas, and the amount of
Oh,
koalas we just
cool.
saw in the
Yeah.
wild was insane. However, obviously, I know they are becoming rarer to see because obviously the bushfires that have happened in
Yeah.
recent years over here, which is upsetting that they're becoming more and more kind of endangered. But yeah, like seeing them in the wild is a lot more fulfilling than going and seeing them sitting on a stick and maybe you holding them or giving them a stroke. Plus,
Yeah.
I think it's very well known now that koalas also carry chlamydia as well. So I'm like,
Oh, I
do I
didn't
really?
know that. That's
Yeah.
a
So a lot of
great
people
point.
they catch chlamydia from koalas, and I'm just kind of like, I don't want to risk that.
No, I don't need that. Of all the things I need in my life, that is not one. Oh my
That's the
God.
thing. Try explain that to somebody. Like, like if you end up getting like chlamydia from a koala, imagine like going to like the person you're with and being like, so I have this, but I haven't cheated. It's from
Yeah,
a
no, it was
koala.
a
That's not a
koala.
conversation that's going to go well.
Oh my God, yeah. I really want to listen to that conversation as it goes down, just for fun.
Yeah. That's just one reason in itself not to go to holding koalas.
Yes, exactly. What? Right back to the main point. Leave them alone. Just let them be.
Exactly, and I think it is finding those cruelty-free attractions as well.
Yeah.
Because obviously you have riding elephants, you've got the tiger selfies, you got people
Yes.
swimming with dolphins.
Snake charming, the whole there's just the amount of things that are terrible is unfortunately long.
Yeah, how are we feeling about the whole kind of civet coffee kind of thing?
Oh God, that's disgusting. And so I'm running a group tour to Bali in September, and so I was doing a little bit of investigation with that. I guess it is becoming less and less of an actual thing because of public outcry. But you'll still see it kind of sold, but it's a lot of times it's fake. And so places are saying like this is actually civet coffee, but it's just regular old coffee. But it's just a disgusting thing too. Like what in what mind? And I guess for people who aren't listening, civet coffee is the correct me if I'm wrong too. The animal eats the bean or eats the berry, then digests it, and then they take that to create the coffee. It's gross. And so in order to get this, like the animals have to be held in cages and really terrible situations and circumstances. So it's just like super gross all the way around. But I don't know why that could ever be popular. Like, why do you want to drink poop coffee, essentially?
Yeah, it's wild to me because I'm just like that. You know where that's been, right? Like that's just been in the intestines of an animal and then shat out, and and then you're drinking it. Like
Yeah.
it's been cleaned, ooh, great. Like if I was to do that and give somebody my own poo coffee, nobody would want to drink it.
I would like you to package that and sell it though and see how it goes.
Like, because I haven't myself seen the civet coffee. I know that's more Asia, but like
Yeah.
In Costa Rica, I came across in Jaco, um, monkey poo coffee, which
I
was
haven't
from
seen that in
monkeys.
Costa Rica. Interesting.
It was only one place I saw it at. I don't know if it's like a Costa Rican wide thing. However, I saw that I was like, that's disgusting.
Super gross.
Also, I enjoy my coffee in the morning. I don't want to be thinking, has this been washed properly? Let alone it's been in the intestines of an animal.
Right, exactly. That like gives a whole new meaning to waking up in the morning. Oh, gross. Yeah. Mm-mm.
So yeah, I feel like the cruelty-free attraction thing, because I know over here I think that they are knuckling down on things like, the crocodile farming as well, that you can just kind of go to a crocodile farm. I'm like, once again, not a normal thing that you can or should be doing in the wild is
No.
touching crocodiles.
Right, exactly. Right. The same, like, so for here, we don't, we'd have alligators like in the South. I have not seen these nor looked for them, but I'm sure there are like similar alligator type things. But you can easily like go into the wetlands and see them. But also, like alligators are coming up into people's yards all the time, like in Florida, and eating their dogs and things. Like, have we not learned that they are predators and they will eat you if given the chance? Like, why do you want to go and mess with them? Have you not learned? Oh, no, I know the answer to that. No, you have not learned.
Yeah, I think anything that comes out of Florida is
It's
a
crazy. Just proceed with caution, immense caution.
that's the thing. Like the animals over there are wild, and I think it's over here that the animal. I don't think there's any animal that I'd want to just go and mess with. Like
No,
Australian animals aren't things that you just want to kind of jump in
no,
like jump in like a circle with and play around with. There's not one thing over here that I'm like that seems safe.
no, no, no. Stick to your, house cats, and that's about it.
So vegan hotels, they are popping up everywhere at the moment,
Yeah.
which is great. Because like wherever you go, you can find somewhere that will cater. Even if they're not vegan, they will be able to cater for you, and things become more eco-friendly and sustainable as well. And like it's incredible to see that there is this movement. And
Mhm.
I found a few. Well, I don't normally, when I'm traveling around, I normally stay in hostels because one, it's
Mhm.
cheaper,
Yeah,
and I don't have other people with me, so it's very much I
right.
can just kind of go in a room. But there's so many even vegan hostels as well, which is wild in comparison to 10 years ago, where I don't think that would have been a thing.
Yeah, I mean, just like with the kind of the growth of the industry in general, everything has really grown. And there are some countries where it is definitely much easier to find more of them. I was actually just doing some research for an article about vegan hotels in Italy, and there are quite a few like vegan, vegetarian, or super vegan friendly ones. And that's even just grown within the last couple of years, it feels like. But yeah, I mean, and being vegan friendly, that has definitely improved, but there are definitely still some places where it, gets more difficult. And there are times like if I'm planning something for a client, especially if they have like a tighter budget, I'm just like, no, we're leaving breakfast off of this because their definition of vegan friendly and our definition of vegan friendly are two very different things. And it's not worth 30 euros for you to pay that. So I mean, like the growth is very cool. I got the opportunity to stay at a really cool one in Santorini early this spring called Ethos Vegan Sweets and Fiera. And the family was just amazing. And it was just like such a great experience. And you felt really good about it. Because so often all of these places are like family run, like they are in and day out in these places, like making sure guests are happy, making sure like you know how to navigate their town and you get the most of it. And so it's just like such a really great like community experience to be able to have too. And they also just recently opened a villa property not too far from Fiera, which was also really gorgeous too. And I'd say, I was talking to someone else about this recently, that when you've had the opportunity to stay at a vegan hotel, like going back to a regular one, it almost feels like you're being punished because it's just like such a nice experience that everything you open in the minibar is you can eat and drink, and like everything they're gonna bring you, like you can eat and drink. It's just, and that they're like, they're using your money in the best ways possible to promote things that align with your values, which is so nice as well too.
I think as well, you going to these places creating a demand for more of these
Yes.
places as well. Because the thing is, that's what you need to do is create that
Yes, supply and
demand.
demand. Yes.
There's otherwise, like if I, like, it may be sometimes a slightly bit more expensive.
Yeah.
However, I'm like, I'd rather spend that money so things later on down the line there'll be more of them. However, they will get cheaper.
Yes,
Like than
exactly.
obviously me going and just like staying in a regular hotel where
Right.
there's a big chance of cross contamination, even if they are doing the you know even if they are serving something that is vegan,
Sure.
or the fact that like a lot of some of these countries, veganism not a huge thing.
Hmm.
It is still growing, but some of these chefs don't know what exactly is. So you might be getting
Yeah.
things in that aren't exactly what you want.
Right. There's still many opportunities where you can get bread and an apple for breakfast.
Yeah.
I've even stayed at some really nice places around the world, and some of their vegan options were just absolute crap, or the chefs didn't understand, or things were not labeled properly. And it's like, come on, if you're trying to be a 4 or 5 star place, like this is unacceptable. Like you should be able to answer all these questions. Your staff should all be trained. This should be a consistent thing across the board. This shouldn't be a guessing game of I don't know what to give you. Here's a banana. Like, no, not okay.
Yeah, it's surprising how things are coming because like some airlines also shocking.
Oh,
Airlines
yes.
some airlines that the one I went on from England to Australia the other day gave me a vegan breakfast, which was one of
Okay.
the most incredible vegan breakfasts that I've ever had. It was scrambled tofu,
Oh my
vegan
gosh.
sausage.
What
This was
was the airline?
China Airways.
Oh, well, I did have a very good dinner with China Air.
They gave, so I think I got about 9 meals of them altogether, from
Okay.
backwards and forwards. Every single one of those were like a tofu dish or a
Yeah.
tempeh dish, which was incredible. However, I know that China Southern and China Eastern are very, and then China, 3 different airlines. China
Oh,
Airlines, real good. China Eastern, China Southern, shocking.
oh, wow. That's so interesting. And it's so interesting too. Like, just from day to day, it can be different. Like, I always hear from people, they're like, I had terrible experience on United. And then another person's like, no, my food was great. I had X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, it's really frustrating at this point that airlines haven't gotten the whole like special meal thing down. Like, you've had a lot of years to practice this, and I know you have increased demand for it. I actually, coming back from South Africa, I had to change my flight. And so it was kind of late, but the agent told me, they're like, oh, we requested your meal. And in the back of my head, I was like, oh no, I'm not getting food. I just need to be prepared for this. And so I didn't, from Johannesburg to Amsterdam. And I was like, okay, fine. So I ate in Amsterdam. And then from Amsterdam to Detroit, I thought that one would be okay because there was enough time, like with that flight. But no, there wasn't. And so the guy that was sitting next to me, he was really funny. He goes, I know you have salads in business class that you can give her. Like this isn't okay. And so he then like starts advocating for me. And I was like, I'm just going to sit back and allow this random human being to advocate for me because it's true. Like, how is this such a problem still in this day and age? Like, get it together.
That is the thing, like because they do special meals for every other kind of religion or
Gluten-free, halal.
dietary.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
not too hard to, not add some meat and some cheese and some eggs into things. Like even some rice and
Right.
beans would be like, the easiest option you could give us.
Yeah, or too, like I fly Delta a lot because Detroit is a Delta hub. And so they always, like on their main dinner service, have like a chicken option and generally a vegetarian option. And I'm like, just make the vegetarian option vegan. Like, just call it plant-based if you want to be softer about it. Like, that's totally fine. Nobody's really going to say anything. And the people who do, you let them squawk and then they'll burn themselves out and then they'll go squawk about something else. Like, let's progress with this. Like, this is silly. Like, because you're just making more work for yourself and more aggravation. Because that lady really didn't want to have to deal with me and like trying to track down extra lettuce. And like, what else did she give me? She gave me like a bowl of lettuce and a few pieces of pineapple. And I just like laughed and I was like, It's fine, lady. I actually, and this is like a tip for people, like if the special meals don't show up and it's an airline that you do fly regularly or maybe kind of regularly, ask them for points. And get them to give you something in exchange for like not feeding you. And so that's what I did with the Delta one. I was like, hey, I'm not getting food, so like put some points in my account. And they did. They're like, okay, sure, we'll do that for you.
Yeah, that's a good word. Like I've never thought of that. Like I
Yeah.
didn't realize you could exchange your
You just
your
get
hunger.
pushy.
Your hunger.
If you get enough pieces of random pineapple, like you start to get creative with what you might ask people for.
Yeah, but see, there has been some airlines where I've been like, oh, this is awful. Airport food as well. Like airport food is getting better in some places.
Yes, it's getting
Like
better. Yes, in some places, yes.
like the Australian airports, fine. Especially London airports,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. Oh, you're easy. Like London's like vegan capital of the world. Like I can get kind of anything I want.
Yeah,
But
right.
like
Totally.
you go to like some random airports in the middle of Colombia, and firstly there's a language barrier.
Yeah.
However, secondly, I'm like, we're just getting bread. We're getting bread. We're getting some water, and there's nothing much else. But weirdly enough, like some of these countries that you would assume not to be very vegan friendly are very vegan friendly, like Colombia. And Peru and all these South
Mhm.
American countries that you assume are like very meat heavy, and I would say obviously places like Argentina very much so, but
Yeah,
they are
totally.
still vegan friendly. You can find vegan places and vegan restaurants and like vegan options everywhere, and they're not just like your 80s salads and chips. Like they're
Yeah.
very much you can get a decent meal, and like I think this is why I spent so long in Colombia, is because I was able to eat so much.
Oh my
I
gosh,
just
that's
wouldn't
so
leave.
funny. Yeah, I mean, so there's quite a few of those countries. Like Ecuador is another one where like the indigenous, diet was based more on plant-based products, and that it wasn't that like it was thought out because people wanted to, have less cruelty or anything like that. It wasn't an ethical consideration. That was just their tradition, and so it's not a far cry for them to like have those things. I was actually just working on an itinerary for Ecuador, and with the plan is to have like a community stay as a part of it, and so the community would do like a cooking class with the group, and I was like, you guys are sure? Like no problem with that. And I sent the menu, and the menu was amazing. And I was like, this is really great. This is really cool. And like not only like do you get this really cool experience, but you don't have to worry about like some weird egg product or whatever that you have to deal with.
I think when it comes to people being vegan and going traveling, there is that kind of sense of like, like what am I going to be able to eat? There's always that, people are scared of like that they're just going to have to live on like salads and like
Yeah.
maybe bread and things like that. But like a lot of these countries are actually more vegan friendlier than like people make out. Like,
Yes.
I think all Latin America probably the easiest of countries that apart from like the language difference.
Mhm.
And I speak enough Spanish to get me into trouble, but not out of trouble. Um, but I can order food. And like they're very accommodating. They're always looking to make people happy as
Yeah.
well. Not that's what I want them to be doing.
Sure.
So I feel like I've come over, like I am a guest in their country,
Yeah.
and they shouldn't be accommodating to me. Why should they be? However, they're very accommodating to the fact that there's no judgment there either, in
Yeah. They
comparison
want
to
you to have
like
a good experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like Colombia, they're very, very vegan friendly. Peru, very vegan friendly. Um, Bolivia as well, and Ecuador, especially Mexico. Mexico, beans and
Mm.
rice with everything. Like,
Yeah. Right.
like even if they don't have an option, you're getting beans and rice, and it's flavored well.
And that's nice because I've had a lot of plain beans and rice where I never wanted to see another bean nor rice grain again. And the same, like on that same kind of thought, I always tell people when they're like thinking about destinations or like they don't know where to go, like first, like start with what kind of trip do you want to have? Do you want it to be very foodie focused? Do you want to be odd? Do you want to try to go to Michelin star restaurants? Do you want like super creativity? Do you want diversity? That's one specific type of trip. Or do you really want to like have a more nature focused, like cultural experience? But you're okay that maybe food will be a little bit more simple at times and won't knock your socks off. And like once you kind of decide that, then we can like talk about, is Peru a good destination for you? Or maybe you should just go to London. And I think that like really helps clarify people's thoughts, because I mean there's tons of places that you can go in the world, and travel is very accessible, and you can, you know, be in I don't know, you can be in South Africa tomorrow looking at elephants. And you know, that's great, but you kind of need to first decide like what kind of trip do you want to have? What's a priority for you before you say, I'm going here? Because here might not be the best option for you.
I completely agree with that. Like, it's very much that, like, if you are looking for those, you know, Michelin stars, and you are looking for like your more city breaks, and you don't really want to be kind of in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
sure, go to like one of those big cities where it's kind of it's easier for you to
Yeah.
just get around. Whereas if you want to explore the culture and find new things and learn new things, then you need to kind of get out of the main tourist destinations.
Yes. Yeah, you have to do something else, but like you have to kind of be cognizant of that before. Otherwise, you're gonna be sorely disappointed. Then you get there and you're like, wait a second, do I have to eat plantains one more time, or do I have to eat French fries like for lunch again? Like, you know, these are all realities we have to face.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, yeah, you want it tailored to you as well. Like, you want to tailor your trip to you, and like if you're not okay with winging it and just kind of maybe having to eat like some bread at the side of a road, um, like you're not going to have an enjoyable time. Whereas if you
Right.
want to travel and like, you know, have those like experiences, you need to kind of like tailor that to
Yeah.
your needs and your specific needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And pack snacks. Like, there's nothing wrong with like putting some, you know, granola bars or protein bars or whatever else you want in your backpack just in case, and away you go.
I had an experience. It was in Peru. I wanted to go see Machu Picchu, so I
Hmm.
did the second day trek, which was like a 6 day trek where you go through the Amazon, the Andes, and then you end up on Machu Picchu by the end 6 days later. And they were like, "Oh, we do vegan options." I was like, "Oh, do you?" Um,
Oh, do you?
so prior to this, I stayed in the hostel and I cooked so much food, made so many granola bars. I was like, I just need the energy to get me through this, because this is a lot of walking, this is a lot of everything.
Yeah, it is a
So I
lot.
was like, I'm not gonna get fed, because I didn't trust the guy who understood what I meant. I got on that trip, and I like so they set up like little campsites along the road where they'd cook, and that
Hmm.
each and every stop had some of the best vegan options that I've
Yeah.
ever had. I was so surprised. Because like the guy was like, vegan. I don't know, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna wait. And then like I was coming back with curries in the night
Oh
time.
my
The
gosh, that's
breakfasts
amazing.
were like like scrambled tofu burritos. There was tempeh at
Holy
some
smokes.
points,
That's
and I was like,
amazing.
yeah, I was overwhelmed with
Yeah.
the amount of food and the amount of effort they went to, and the fact that like the people that weren't vegan were eating my food as well. I was like, that's more annoying than anything. Um, like it's great that you are. It's great that you're
Yeah.
enjoying this.
Yes. Well, how
But
about you enjoy it somewhere else, not in the middle of the Amazon?
yeah,
Yeah,
I need this to sustain myself.
right. Those teams of like people who work the trails and the chefs, like they are super talented. I have also heard stories of them making cakes on the
Yeah,
trails and all kinds of things. It's blown my mind. Like I struggle sometimes making pancakes, for heaven's sakes. Like, and then you want to like go into the middle of the jungle and have to do this. Like, I don't know. Hard pass.
yeah. So some of the foods they were bringing out, and it wasn't just like a dish for each person. They were bringing out buffets, and I'm like, how are you doing this from like two pots, like, literally two pots in the Andes? Like we're
Yeah.
like, I don't know how high we are in the air, and I don't know how this has happened, but wow, like you created some incredible things, and yeah, the fact that they went out of their way, and like I'm not too sure if he was even a vegan. Well, I'm sure not a vegan chef or knew how to cook vegan, but he was creating some good things with it. So
Yeah.
like Because when I spoke to him, he didn't really understand what I was on about. I didn't really understand what he was on about, and like, but by the end, we had a mutual kind of like, you don't want
Respect. Yeah. You guys
to.
were buds for sure.
And I think like it is accessibility now, and I think like as things grow over time, like tours and that are becoming more vegan. Yeah, maybe on one tour you might just get a few sandwiches,
Sure.
but some days you might get like like a whole buffet full of foods. And I was
Yeah.
like, I was so appreciative of that, like that could even happen, because I thought I was gonna be the one left out.
Yeah, right. And that would have been a really painful thing. Because it's like one thing to be left out and like you're doing kind of a city itinerary, but you're in the middle of nowhere, like literally. It's not like you could just be like, hey guys, I'm gonna like step out and like run to the little market on the side of the road and I don't know, get some avocados. Like, no. You've got what's on your back and that is it.
That is literally it. Like you are going with what you have and hoping for the best.
Mm-hmm.
What have you found is like your most like vegan friendly countries though? Like for you, do you have like a top three?
Ooh, a top 3 vegan friendly countries. So I would say the UK does rate up there pretty high. I always have like the utmost confidence when I send people there, and I've had, really awesome experiences throughout the UK. I think that is a really good one. There have been parts of Germany that have been really fabulous as well, like Berlin, Hamburg, the
I was about
northern
to say
part.
Berlin definitely has to be one of
Yeah,
those.
yeah, it's really fantastic. Um, Gosh, where else? Top 3. Oh, a third one that seems hard because so many of them kind of feel a little neck and neck at this point. And it's just kind of like hit or miss. Like I was in Greece earlier this spring, and like prior to going, like I knew that like some things were like going to be easier than others, and I was specifically going off the beaten path so that I could try and like advise people to get away from doing the exact same thing everybody on Instagram was doing. And so I spent more time on the mainland and through the Peloponnese Peninsula. And so we were doing some really rural visits. And at that point, like I thought, oh no, some of this might get rough. But a lot of traditional Greek dishes are vegan friendly, just by happenstance. It's not that it was like planned, but it just that is. And so that was like surprisingly like pretty great. I mean, I did have quite a few of the same things over time, but some of it was because I just chose them because I liked them. And that was like one of those surprising things. Like I was like, oh, this was good. This was easier than I expected. And I had brought like quite a bit of stuff with me just in case, and I didn't really need it. And so that was really nice. I always really enjoy when that happens. And the similar thing, like Iceland is another one. Has some surprisingly vegan friendly spots, and because the country does focus on sustainability, they have adapted many more options. And so most menus you'll always find at least one thing, most. And then in the capital, there are quite a few vegan and vegetarian restaurants. And so, that was really great. And like we even found like vegan sandwiches and a burrito and a burger at rest stops. And that blew my mind. I had quite a few like rest stops in my lifetime. And generally like the option is French fries or French fries. Like there's like nothing else. But at a couple of these rest stops, like throughout Iceland, I think I bought chocolate covered almonds that were vegan. My husband, I think, got a burger at one point. I think we talked about it. I remember the discussion. And there were like a handful of other things that were just like, what the heck is this doing at like essentially a truck stop, which was really great.
Yeah, I feel like those kind of like those like service stations that you do go, like they're normally like, because it's normally the truckers and like people that are going there, especially Australia. Like you go to one of these like spots and there's like meat pies and fries, and
Same
even when
here,
fries,
right?
they kind of like, are they are we going to question what that cooks in? Are we are we not? Like
Right.
so at this point, I'm starving and there's nothing much else. Whereas some like there's been a few where I've stopped off and I'm just like, this is incredible. You have an array of things that I can eat.
Yeah.
And that's not so much in Australia. Australia, I think, are very stuck in their way when it comes to like, especially in the truck stops more than the main cities. You
Yeah.
can easily get around, but like, it's literally like you've got crisps, or you've literally got meat pies and maybe like
That's a
sausage
great
roll. And I'm like,
day.
okay, so we are having Sour Patch Kids today because because Sour Patch Kids are their only option there, and they're all plant based here.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
that that's always rough. I mean, and like I tell people too, like, when you do some of these trips and things could get rough, like keep in mind that this is very temporary. Your suffering is just like a day or two. Like you can get through this, you can laugh about it. It's a good story after, but you will get back to normal food. You will get back to like your normal habits. So just enjoy where you are at this moment, enjoy the surroundings, take in what you're doing, eat the potatoes, eat the like pretzels, like whatever you've got, and just be pipe down about it.
I mean, and at least you're not doing this like 30 years ago, like when there was nothing.
Right?
like we're doing it now when things are developing.
Right.
We don't we don't have to worry about like what it would have been like, because you would have just got like lettuce, tomato, cucumber, and maybe like a few other bits and pieces.
And an
You won't.
apple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. You are so right. And and I was joking with someone too, because like now our complaints are like, oh, you're giving me an avocado sushi roll? Like there's no like fancy salmon on it or watermelon ahi tuna or whatever. Like these are my complaints now. And like where's the fancy aioli from my burger? Like we've definitely progressed over time. I went vegetarian when I was 12, and at that point, and where I grew up was very rural, like that was really, 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 really difficult. And then like stepping into veganism when I did was also like a bit of a challenge too. And but now looking back, I'm like, whoa, if only I could go back and tell that person, like, look, it's going to get a ton easier. And the things you complain about now are not going to be the things that you're going to complain about in like 5, 10, 15 years.
I think the only things now that really annoy me is when you go to a country, they have like a completely plant-based burger or something like that, which is the option in most places, the burger.
Sure.
However, their mayonnaise is the only thing that's not vegan friendly.
Or cheese, right.
You've done the cheese, you've done the burger, you've done everything else, you've done the bun,
Yeah.
but the mayonnaise, that's the one thing you couldn't do.
Yeah, right. Like why didn't you go across the finish line? Why is this difficult? Yeah, we have that too. There was someone, it was a fast food chain that actually launched what they were saying was going to be like a vegan burger, but it was technically only vegetarian because they used like regular cheese and I think maybe it was mayo or something too. You're like,
Was that McDonald's by any chance with their
it
McPlant?
was Burger King, I think, for us, because the McPlant it only was launched in like 3 markets here, and it was a super short period of time, and then they pulled it, which was really crap. But Burger King did a Whopper. Actually, Burger King might still have it. I don't frequent Burger King, so I don't know, but I should know.
Yeah, because I know, I know that, like, in the UK, we have our Whopper, we have our McPlant, and we even have a KFC burger completely vegan.
Ah,
Everything in that is so that cheese is vegan, the
that's
mayo
awesome.
is vegan, and
Mhm.
over here as well, the Burger King, however, it's called Hungry Jack's over here,
Mm.
instead of Burger King, is very much they've got that Whopper with plant-based cheese and
Oh,
plant-based mayonnaise,
cool.
which is great. And like even these fast food chains that you can see are like progressing over time. But
Yeah.
I feel like they just kind of launched it in 3 of the when I saw the McPlant being launched in the States, I was like, you literally launched it in the worst states to do it in as
They
well.
sure
I was
did.
like,
It
why?
was
I was like, why are
stupid.
you doing this in Texas when you could be doing it in
Yep.
California or New
Yep.
York or somewhere like
Yep.
that, where
Yeah.
it would have been like it would have been a
Yeah.
blast for people.
Yeah. It would have been embraced. Yeah, for sure. It was oh gosh, yeah, that makes me really mad because there were some headlines out recently too about like its failure. But it failed because your planning was terrible. Like you essentially wasted money. You don't need to launch a new vegan product at a fast food chain in Dallas, Texas. Like I'm really super sorry if someone from Dallas is watching or listening. But like, this is not the market for it to test out something new like that. Like, you go to your New Yorks, your LAs, Chicago, Miami, like any of these places, they're going to be way better for this than Dallas, Texas. Like, what the hell?
That's the thing. Whenever I see these new launches and then I see where they're launching them, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
It's like you set out for this to fail. It's like
Yes.
you've literally done it to be like, oh, there's no demand, so we're not going to do it.
Yeah. You just had extra money to burn. Like, you really just wanted to throw money into the fire pit and let it go.
It's the same as some of these companies. Like Cadbury's in the UK had a chocolate bar that was completely vegan in the first place. It's called Bourneville. And then they wanted to release two vegan chocolate bars, like plant bars. So they added milk back into the Bourneville to make it non-vegan so we wouldn't buy it anymore. And then added these two plant bars, which they're not a success, but they're also not a failure. They're like an in-between. I'm like, Bourneville was a huge thing that we all ate. And it was
It was fine. You could just leave it alone.
yeah, but they're like, oh no, we're going to add milk powder into this now. And apparently that's not the reason. Apparently it had milk in it altogether. However, I was like, it wasn't on the label for at least 20 years. So we know that's a lie.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, that's so frustrating. What is I don't understand.
I was going to mention, like, obviously you said you went vegetarian at 12. Like, that's like a very young age to like make that decision. Was that your decision to do?
Yeah. So I grew up in a very rural, like pretty much farming community. We had horses, and I lived across the way from like a cow farm. I don't know what kind of cows, but cows. And so it was like, that wasn't normal to be vegetarian then. And I mean, we're talking, this would have been in the late 90s. So yeah, vegetarianism wasn't like super a thing here, especially in rural America. But I had to do a project for a class, for a history class, and we needed to write to a senator about an issue that needed reform. And at the time, my sister had become a vegetarian and she was in college. And so she told me I should write about slaughterhouses and so the need for slaughterhouse reform. So 12-year-old me said, yeah, let's research this. And then I was like, not turning back from that. And so at that point, like, I was cemented into, I was never eating beef again. Like, I was never eating meat. Like, what the heck is going on? And everyone at that point in my life said it was a phase. Like, oh, she'll get over it. She can't like go to McDonald's and not get a burger. And so at that time, like, the popular thing was like, you ordered pizza with or you would order a burger without the burger at fast food places. So essentially, you were getting a bun with cheese and lettuce and tomato. And like, I just did it to like prove people wrong that I was going to stick with this. And then fast forward, I went vegan about 7-ish years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And it was initially like kind of health, kind of a mixture of ethics. I always, like, even through my vegetarian years being when I was younger, I dabbled with like getting rid of like the cheese products and other things. But at that time, there wasn't like a very good replacement. And I didn't live somewhere where I had access to like very good things. And I remember when I first got my driver's license, like a really highlight thing to do was to drive to like the city where there were like health food stores and things so that I could buy like soy milk or rice milk and like all of these other like really terrible products at the time. But it was exciting to like test them out. And I remember like just pretending that I liked the cheese that tasted like cardboard because like I really wanted to, be a part of this. But it was super hard to stick with that. And so like I was kind of wonky. And the last thing that like it was hard for me to give up was eggs. And it wasn't like I was attached to them, but for a period of time, I was a big runner and I always felt like, oh, I needed this protein and this was like an easy thing. And so I bought them like from a farmer down the way. And like, so I tried to justify it. But then I started like having some health issues and I did a food sensitivity test and it showed that I was sensitive to casein, which is a protein in milk, and sensitive to gluten and some other things. And so like I really had to like watch any other dairy that was in there. And then I just kind of started to really kind of go down the rabbit hole once again of other like dairy and egg industries. And I was like, okay, like you just need to get rid of this entirely. So, I mean, like most people, it was a process. It wasn't overnight. And I kind of like was a roller coaster for a while, but vegetarian for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, definitely doing a presentation on Slaughterhouse at 12 is one to really kind of like traumatize you.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I wish I would have kept that letter. I don't know why I mean, I didn't. And I wish I could like, I mean, obviously like I didn't have it electronically or whatever. Those were back in times when, you wrote out things and maybe like you did it at the library computer or whatever. But I wish I really had that because I would like to now read it and see what the heck did I talk about.
So you're vegan and you're gluten free.
Yes.
So that definitely makes everything traveling so much harder for you.
Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, people are always like, "Don't you miss dairy?" And I'm like, "No, I don't miss dairy. I miss stupid bread, and like baguettes and all of it. Like that's what I miss." I will say the sensitivity has gotten a lot better over the years. Like when I first had to get rid of it, like even the smallest amounts of things, like just caused so much trouble. Like I could be in pain for days. And so now, like if someone accidentally gives me something, it doesn't cause the immense amount of pain that it once did. I still get maybe a little bit of swelling in my face, but not like I used to. So that makes traveling a lot easier. So I'm not like constantly worried about like cross contamination or did I accidentally just get something that I'm not sure. So that definitely gives some freedom. When I first started really traveling, I had to be very cautious of everything, and that sucked. Like I really traveled with a lot of food and purchased a lot of food because there were other things like I had to really watch tapioca, which is in a lot of gluten-free foods. It's in a lot of foods, period. But it was super inflammatory for me and caused a lot of pain. And like teff was another one, and that's in quite a few things as well too. And so it's definitely taken some time for, I guess, maybe things to heal and settle down, and that's made traveling a lot easier. But I miss gluten so much.
It isn't the best of things. It literally is in everything good.
Yep, it sure is. It really is. It's like the glue, so to speak.
Yeah, but there's because I feel like although like veganism and vegan foods have come such a long way, gluten-free foods haven't come
They
as
have to.
far as they should. Like their bread still tastes awful.
There is one brand, Char, that's really great. The rest of them, like, I don't even mess with now. But I just happened to find Char like ages ago in a tiny market in the Turks and Caicos of all places. And now that company, I think they're Italian, and it's grown exponentially, like globally. And so all their products that I've had have been really good. And so generally, if I buy bread, that'd be the only one I would buy. And it tastes the most like the real thing. But yeah, gluten-free products, poof, they can be hockey pucks.
Yeah, like there's whenever I go to someone's house, I'm very respectful about what they eat as much as I would assume they would be of what I do.
Yeah.
However, whenever there's a gluten, whenever there's someone that's gluten free, I will always bring something gluten free with me for them. However, I'm like, I'm sorry, guys, like I don't know what this is. I will try it with you. However, and
I'm sorry, you have to eat this.
yeah, I was like the fact that you're if you're a non-vegan eating vegan, I'm sorry you have to do this, but but here we are, and the same with the gluten free. I'm like I don't want to touch this because I know like there was a few. I can't remember what it was now. I think it's a pizza base that we created, and the pizza base like it was maybe one of the worst pizza bases.
I mean, I can imagine. Yeah, it's sad.
But yeah, I feel like that's hopefully going to come. Like that's going to improve later on down the line. Because I feel like the gluten intolerance has been around a lot longer, and I
Yeah,
feel
for
like that
sure.
should have kind of improved. Whereas we're getting like random things that we don't need in the vegan community. Like we have like we have like vegan kangaroo steak. I'm like, did we need that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we don't need that. That's not a necessary replacement. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah,
I was
product
like,
variety has grown.
yeah. I was like, we got that, but we can't improve the bread in gluten free.
Oof. Wow, that's a crazy one. I have not heard about that as a vegan product.
Yeah, I saw that the other day, and also a vegan boar steak as well. And I was like, who's that's a delicacy, eating boar and deer. Like that's
Yeah,
like a that's a like, there's not many people that are going out that way to be like, oh yeah, I really fancy
I
my
really
boar
miss
today.
boar.
And like, yeah,
Wow.
he's like, yeah. I mean, like, do we need vegan venison? I don't know. Like,
I guess we get
I'm not
it.
too sure. There's a huge demand for it, and I don't see the product being like a sellout product. But it's in the shops, so there's definitely a need for it. Apparently,
Wow, interesting. I mean, and only if we could go back and tell ourselves all of the things that we will have one day, whether we want them or not.
that's the thing. Like, it's one of those ones where like I could buy that to try it, but I have no comparison to what it was like in the first place because there's
Right,
only a
same.
certain 0.1% of people that are eating those two things.
Right, exactly.
But with your travels, obviously you've done three. Is it three this year, or you've done two and you've got a third one to come?
I have one coming up and then one at the end of the year. So Bali and Costa Rica are the two trips that I have for this year. And
Oh,
then I
mate.
just recently announced 2025 trips, which are to, let's see, Tuscany, Iceland, and Thailand.
I did see those earlier, those 2025 trips. I was like, oh, they look good.
Yeah, they're quite fun. It's always really nice to like travel with like-minded people and not to worry about things. I always tell people it's a true vacation. Like you just show up and we take care of everything for you. And I don't know about anybody else, but I don't have that too often to just get to show up and have everything taken care of for me. So take advantage of it if you can.
Absolutely. And like obviously with these people, I'm guessing you're getting an array of people and predominantly vegans, but I'm assuming some of them are bringing maybe family members with them that
Yeah.
aren't vegan as well. Um, how is that like bringing like I'm assuming you might get some pushback at first, but by the end they're kind of like they're in with it.
Yeah, pretty much exactly. Like, people are very reluctant in the beginning. They're very worried. Like, are they going to have to survive on pineapple for an entire 10 days or whatever? But by the end, like, for a trip to Thailand, a couple of the guys were like, you know what? We realized I don't need animal products as much as I thought I did. And that this was all really great. And that was really fabulous. I actually joked at one point, I was like, maybe I should run trips, like vegan trips for non-vegans, and see how this goes. So I really hope that the amount of non-vegans continues to grow, or people who are just veg curious, because it's like so far it's been, very non-judgmental, and that's like, my general ethos, like come as you are, we'll work through this, we'll talk about things. And I always feel like too, like no matter if I'm traveling for another work purpose or for this, like once people get to like know me or know you, and they feel like, oh, okay, this person's pretty cool, and then they open up and they start asking questions, and that just can lead to good things. And so I really encourage that. And yeah, so if there are non-vegans listening, please come, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, I think the whole leading by example thing
Yeah.
is the main like driving factor in some of these. Like I understand there's room for each type of activism,
Right.
and each type of activism does work to its people. But when people are going on a trip, they don't want to be confronted with activism on a trip.
Yeah.
They're very
Right.
much kind of like, I'm there to enjoy myself. I'm there to relax. So you
Yeah.
leading by example is
Right.
definitely the way to kind of like at least show these people that it can be done. It is easier
Yeah.
than you think it might be, without obviously going into the kind of we're doing this because of the animals. This like
Yeah.
obviously there's that about it, but like if you're going on a trip, you're there to relax. You're not there to be
Yeah.
confronted with like various different accusations.
Yeah, right. You don't want to watch slaughterhouse videos. Like that's just not, there's a time and a place for that, and that's not the time nor the place. And that's not the easiest way to get through to people, especially in that situation, because they're just going to be like, okay, I should have used my trip cancellation policy and not done this.
Yeah. No, yeah, I feel like that's the best way to do it. Was like travel as well, and like you're meeting with various different cultures, and then like especially when it comes to food as well, like you can create such good conversation
Yeah.
over food, as long as you're all enjoying it, and like the
Yes.
amount of like room there is for people to express their opinions and
Hmm.
actually talk without judgment
Hmm.
becomes so much better when there's good food and good culture involved, and it's beautiful to see what can happen.
Yes, agreed. For sure. For sure.
So before I wrap this up, um, we normally we have a closing tradition on this podcast, which is obviously if you're feeling lazy, you're feeling you know tired, and you need to cook something quick and easy. But like, but it doesn't even have to be nutritious. It can be anything you want. What are you going for?
Interesting. Well, the first funny point of that is that I don't really do most of the cooking in this house. My husband does it for me, which is very nice. And actually, a funny side note of that, sometimes on the weekends, like when we're like making lists of things, he's like, "So what are you going to make this week?" And I laugh and I'm like, "I don't know. What are you going to make me this week? Like, I'm not making anything." I would say a recent like very easy go-to for me is anything with beans to like kind of make a taco concoction. And so if I have tofu and beans and like salsa and like a vegetable or whatever, I will wrap that up into whatever. And honestly, if Matt did not cook for me, I would probably every week buy random cans of beans, random tofu, and just shove it in wraps. And that's what I would survive on.
I love that. I love the answers that we get on this. I need
I
to
mean,
create.
cereal would be the other runner up to that.
I feel like with all the answers that I get, I could probably create like the most like bizarre cookbook
Oh my
that
God, that would be hilarious.
of just different vegan meals from random vegans around the world.
So funny.
So if we want to book a trip with you, where
Yes.
your trips in 2025? Where are they?
So for the small group tours, they are to, let's see, Tuscany, Iceland, and Thailand. There is a possibility that there could be another one added, but right now those are the three. But if you're not interested in going to those destinations or the timing doesn't work with your schedule, I do work with people individually. And so, wherever you want to go and whenever you want to go, I am here to help you.
And where can we find you?
You can visit veggiesabroad.com, or you can check me out on Instagram, which is just Veggies Abroad as well. Or let's see, same name on like any of the podcast platforms. My podcast is on streaming on all of those as well. And you'll find my email on any of those as well too. So shoot me a message, shoot me an email, whichever works for you.
And you still got a blog?
Oh yes, that
Yeah.
is still part of the website. And so if you are planning a trip to, I don't know, let's say London, there is a little search bar in the top hand corner of the website, and you can just search for the destination that you're looking for, or you can scroll down to the very bottom, and there's a blog tag that you can go in there. Or the third way is at the very top, the main menu, there are travel guides. And so you can look by destination that way.
I love that. I love those. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was terrific.
It's no worries.